watching the Faculty of the Mace show, where faculty authority is promoted and protected in the Academy of the 21st century.
Welcome to Episode 2, Accreditation Shopping. How do the accreditors feel? In this episode, we'll look at how one national accreditor feels about accreditation shopping by one of its member schools. Let's examine this case study. The case study involves Westwood Online and several other Westwood College campuses. These campuses are owned by Alta Colleges, and Housatonic Partners, a private equity investment firm, owns Alta Colleges. Westwood Online is accredited by the ACCSC, the Accrediting Commission of Career Schools and Colleges. Dr. Michael McComas is the executive director of that organization. You'll meet Dr. McComas in a minute as he testifies before the United States Senate Help Committee. Senator Tom Harkin, a Democrat of Iowa, is the chairman of that committee. And on August 4th, 2010, the committee held a hearing on for-profit schools, the student recruitment experience. Let's watch together as we roll what is, in my opinion, one of the most amazing 4 minutes of testimony ever given at a United States Senate hearing on higher education. Let's put that up on the monitor now.
Dr. McComas, hearing this, I understand that you accredit Westwood.
We do have some Westwood campuses that we accredit, yes.
You accredit this one in Colorado?
We do.
You do. And evidently they're in accreditation.
They have chosen to leave my agency. They are currently accredited. They're in a deferral status with us. They've chosen to make application with another agency.
But during the time that Mr. Prine was there, you did accredit them.
We do. We still do accredit them.
And you still do accredit them?
Yes.
I guess I'm still a little concerned that you do on-site evaluations. This seems to be pervasive at this campus. I mean, it wasn't just one person, it was everyone. And you said, as I kept repeating, that in your written testimony you said the highest level of integrity injected into the student recruitment and admissions process. How could you do on-site evaluations at Westwood when this was so pervasive and not see it?
We had that campus on operating under a show cause order. We were very concerned about the outcomes at that institution. We placed them on show cause. They responded by indicating that they were going to cease enrollment in 6 of the 8 programs that we had identified as being low outcomes. I believe that the low outcomes were indicative of the kinds of practices that are being discussed here. After that action was taken, Westwood indicated to us that they had chosen to make application to another agency. They told us directly that it was because they were unable to meet our standards, particularly with regard to student achievement. I think that's indicative of a problem throughout with regard to accreditation shopping and the opportunity for that to occur. And I would encourage the committee to look at that as a particular issue. I'd also like to just follow up on the last point that you had made with regard to membership dues. All accreditors receive their sustaining fees, membership dues, from their accredited institutions. It is an opportunity for that self-policing peer review evaluation process to ensue. It doesn't matter whether you're a for-profit or not-for-profit.
Yeah, I'm going to look into that. You know, that seems to me to sort of be a situation that would be rife with a kind of a conflict. If I'm inspecting somebody and they're paying me to inspect them, and they can leave my organization and go someplace else and take their money someplace else, makes it pretty tough to.
Well, I think that accreditation shopping is, I mean, there are very legitimate reasons why it happens, particularly with regard to transfer of credit. Because, as we've even talked about here today, that there are some discriminatory practices out there with regard to transfer of credit.
I guess I still come back to the fact that with all of this stuff going on at Westwood, you still accredit them. Why don't you just and an on-site evaluation to see this and say, we're taking your accreditation away, bang, just like that? Why can't you do that? You can't do that?
I don't know that we identified the specific instances, nor do we have evidence of the specific instances that were brought forward in this particular hearing. We certainly have identified issues that have led us to have concerns about their outcomes.
Well, I'm wondering why your on-site evaluation didn't pick that up. Just like the other 41 that I mentioned here, that are on the cohort of default rates.
Notice that these statements have been made publicly before the U.S. Senate Help Committee at a hearing on August 4th, 2010. These statements have been made by an authoritative person in the post-secondary accreditation sector. In fact, Dr. McComas is the executive director of a national post-secondary accrediting agency. And these statements are certainly not made by a rogue individual. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to make the following important legal disclaimers. I believe that the statements made above during the U.S. Senate Help Committee hearing are both privileged and true. I believe that the individuals involved in this matter are either public figures, involuntary public figures, or limited public figures. I also believe that I'm making fair comment on a matter of the public interest. Furthermore, when I say in my opinion, I mean that I'm expressing my own personal opinion. My opinion is non-authoritative, fallible, and subject to error. It's simply my opinion. I'd like you, the audience, to construe any statements that I make in this episode as my own personal opinion. You are free to evaluate my opinion in any way you please. That finished, I'd like to review some of the statements made by Dr. McComas about Westwood Online. Here are some of the statements. They have chosen to leave my agency. They've chosen to make application with another agency. We had that campus operating under a show cause order. We were very concerned about the outcomes at that institution. We placed them on show cause. They were going to cease enrollment in 6 out of the 8 programs with low outcomes. The low outcomes were indicative of the kinds of practices that are being discussed here. Westwood indicated to us that they had chosen to make application to another agency. They told us directly that it was because they were unable to meet our standards, particularly with regard to student achievement. That's indicative of the problem throughout with regard to accreditation shopping and the opportunity for that to occur. I would encourage the committee to look at accreditation shopping as a particular issue. And finally, you surely have identified issues that have led us to have concerns about their outcomes. Now, what can we say about these comments? First, I'd like to congratulate Dr. McComas on his openness in what is a very difficult situation. From his testimony, we can conclude that, at least in this instance, accreditation does work. Accreditation may be imperfect. It may take more time to reach its outcomes and conclusions than we would like, but in fact, it does work. Like any good manager, Dr. McComas is protecting his brand, and he has a fiduciary duty to do that. His board of directors could actually terminate him for cause otherwise. ACCSC's correct behavior here suggests that the appropriate model for the relationship between an accreditor and the institution that it accredits is not the customer-vendor model. Rather, it is or should be the agency model. A future Faculty of the Mace episode will deal with the agency model for accreditation. In fact, the Faculty of the Mace suggests that the establishment and maintenance of this agency relationship should be the focus of any future policy debate on the funding of accreditors. One of our policy proposals, discussed in the next episode, will make this agency model of accreditation even more effective. At this point, I would like to very respectfully disagree with just one of the many excellent points made by Senator Harkin when he asked Dr. McComas, quote, Why don't you just, on an on-site evaluation to see this, say that we're taking your accreditation away? Bang! Just like that. End quote. I feel that in spite of the egregiousness of Westwood Online's alleged behavior, that all accredited institutions, as well as candidates for accreditation, deserve full due process. However, and this is a key condition, this due process also must include full due diligence. Now let's take a look at the new accreditor. So, who is the new accrediting agency? The new accrediting agency is ACICS, the Accrediting Council for Independent Colleges and Schools. Dr. Albert C. Gray is the Executive Director and CEO. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate Dr. Gray on ACICS's upcoming 100th anniversary in 2012. Let's take a brief look at ACICS's website. Seeing this, it appears from the website that 9 Westwood campuses are now candidates for accreditation at that agency. What can we conclude from this? Looking only at the authoritative comments of Dr. McComas, which are now part of the public record, and looking at ACICS's own public website, in my opinion, a reasonable person can infer that Alta Colleges is accreditation shopping at ACICS for the worst of possible reasons, that it cannot meet the standards of its current accreditor. This, in fact, is the key conclusion of this episode. I'd like to say that my concerns are not outcome-based. That is, my concerns are not whether or not these campuses are accredited. Rather, my concerns are process-based. That is, I'm concerned with how the accreditation decision is in fact reached. I believe that for-profit education, as well as national accreditation, is key to meeting the administration's higher education goals. However, this for-profit sector is now under intense scrutiny. Therefore, this accreditation process must be as diligent and open as possible. If people trust the integrity of the process, then they will accept the result of that process. In episode 3, we will make 2 policy recommendations regarding the integrity of the accreditation process. These recommendations protect both the public interest and the interest of the post-secondary educational community itself. We will also make recommendations about how these policies should be applied to this specific case study. How do you feel about the accreditation shopping in this case study? Let us know by visiting facultyofthemace.com. There you will find many ways to join the community and leave your feedback. Thanks for watching. I'll see you inside the next video.
Produced at Studio C, Colorado, USA.